It's definitely working. Matthew, it's definitely working. It's working, yeah. Thank you. We will start again now. We're sure that the microphone is working, and for the benefit of any members of the public listening, I will start from the beginning. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee. I'm Martin Warnes, Chair of the Planning Committee, and I will be chairing the meeting. To begin the meeting, there are a few housekeeping matters. Action in the event of an emergency. There are no planned alarms planned for this evening, so if an alarm sounds, please evacuate the town hall by going down the main stairs to the back staircase to the High Street and then to the car park behind the town hall in St Runwald Street. This meeting is being live streamed to the council's YouTube page and will be available after the meeting. Please would speakers use microphones at all times and speak directly into the microphone, and would participants please mute the microphones when not speaking. So we will now do the introductions. Members of the committee and officers will introduce themselves, starting from my left.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Councillor Sam McCarthy, representing Shrub End and Vice Chair of the committee.
Councillor Tracy Arnold, Stanway Ward.
Sam McLean, Newtown and Christchurch.
Councillor Kayleigh Rippingale, Newtown and Christchurch Ward.
Lee Tate for Prettygate Ward.
Councillor Will Calverley, Tiptree Ward.
Councillor Catherine Spindler from the Saints Ward.
Councillor Mark Gocher, Castle Ward.
Councillor Jackie McLean, Markstown Lair Ward.
Councillor Robert Davidson, Mersey and Five-Fleet Ward.
Stephanie O'Grady, Planning Officer.
Kelsey Oliver, Planning Officer.
Chris Harden, Planning Officer.
Lucy Mondon, Development Manager.
James Ryan, Development Manager.
Madeline Rolofsma, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you. Members of the committee may use electronic devices to access their meeting papers, and visitors are welcome to use mobile phones and other devices, including cameras. But please use them discreetly, set them to silent, and do not use voice or camera flash functions. If necessary, we will have a break at 7:30 p.m. and every 90 minutes thereafter. There are toilets on every floor in the building and an induction loop in this room. Whilst determination of a planning application is not a quasi-judicial process, unlike certain licensing functions carried out by the local authority, it is a formal administrative process involving the application of national and local policies, reference to legislation and case law, as well as rules of procedure, rights of appeal, and an expectation that people will act reasonably and fairly. All involved in these decisions should remember that the possibility that an aggrieved party may seek a judicial review and or complain to the Ombudsman on grounds of maladministration or a breach of the authority's code. Substitutions. Are there any? Can't see anyone. Okay, apologies, there are none. Declarations of interest. Councillor Rippingale.
I have an interest in item 7.2 because I've called it in and intend to speak on it, so I'll recuse myself for that item.
Thank you. And Councillor McLean.
7.2 is my ward. It's my interest.
Thank you. So we'll go on to item 4. There are no urgent items. Item 5, have your say. If anyone has a petition they wish to present to me on any of the items on the agenda this evening, please do so now. Right, we move on to item 6, minutes for confirmation. Councillors are invited to confirm the minutes of the meeting on the 27th of November are a correct record. Is there a proposer? Councillor Tate, seconder. Councillor McCarthy. All in favour, please show. Okay, that looks passed. Right, thank you. So, item 7, we move on to planning applications, and here are the applications. 7.1 is for Fairfield Gardens. Recommendation is approved subject to conditions. Presenting officer is Kelsey Oliver. There are no speakers for or against, and there are no visiting councillors. 7.2 is Athelston House. Recommendation is for refusal. The presenting officer is Kelsey Oliver. There are no public speakers against. Public speaker for is James Bacon, and the visiting councillor is Councillor Rippingdale. 7.3 is land off Oak Road Chapel. The recommendation is to approve subject to conditions. Presenting officer is Chris Harding. Public speaker in favour is Angus Forrest, and the visiting councillor is Councillor Sunnock. 7.4 is Portal Precinct, Sir Isaac Walk. Recommendation is to approve subject to conditions. Sorry? Yeah, I've just been corrected that Angus Forrest on 7.3 is speaking against. Back to 7.4, and the presenting officer is Stephanie O'Grady. There are no public speakers against or for, and no visiting councillors. Item 7.5 is Heathfields House, Abbots Road. The recommendation is for approval. Presenting officer is Phil Morton, and there are no public speakers for or against, and no visiting councillors. 17.6 is the Little Glebe Spring Lane. Recommendation is that the authority approves subject to the finalisation of a unilateral undertaking relating to biodiversity net gain. Presenting officer is Chris Harding. There are no speakers against, and there are no speakers for.
Yeah, there are no speakers.
Yeah, and there is no visiting councillor. So, members, on the basis of what I've just read out, you are at liberty, if you want to take 7.1 Fairfield Gardens, 7.4 Portal Precinct, 7.5 Heathfields House, and 7.6 the Little Glebe Spring Lane on block. Okay. So, what do I need?
Yes,
Yeah, so can we have a proposer and seconder to take those items on block? Proposed by Councillor Arnold, seconded by Councillor McCarthy. All in favour, please show. That is passed. So anyone that has an interest in that is welcome. In those items are welcome to leave now, and we'll move on to 7.2, which is Athelston House, and I'll invite Kelsey Oliver to present. Just before you do present, I've got to read something on block.
on block.
Yes. I do normally. If you could just bear with us, Kelsey, thank you. Thank you for your patience. So, in line with the items taken on block, I need to read the following statement. In considering the planning applications listed, the committee may choose to take an item on block to agree decision and recommendation made in respect of applications for which no member of the committee or the public wishes to address. And therefore, having considered those items en bloc, they are approved in line with the officer's recommendations. Thank you. Kelsey, if you would like to go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. This is item 7.2, 201 Malden Road. The application seeks retrospective permission for a bicycle timber storage structure located to the front of the property. This is the site location plan. The site lies along Malden Road within a residential location, and the key considerations are the principle and the impact character of the area. Malden Road is characterised by low-level frontages and boundary treatments. This is the site layout plan. And these are the elevations. The position of the bike store is prominent within the street scene. Due to its height, length and materiality, the bike store is a harmful addition within the street scene. These are just some site photographs. Whilst the council fully supports active travel and sustainable modes of transport, it is considered that the harm outweighs the benefits, and the council seeks to refuse the application. Any questions?
Okay, so is there any member of the committee who wants to ask any questions? Councillor Gocher.
Thank you. Do you have any clarification?
Sorry, Councillor Gocher, if I could just stop you. Sorry about that. I've just been advised that we need to take the have your say questions first. Okay. So James Bacon, can I please call you forward? Thank you, James. You've got 3 minutes once you turn on your switch, and the bell will go off after 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Chair, members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to speak. I appreciate the time that officers have taken and consultancies to consider this application, and I recognise that the central issue is about the unacceptable visual harm to the street scene. I'd like to briefly talk about scale, context and balance. First, about scale and design. This structure is a modest size, it's below head height, it's domestic in appearance, and it's constructed of timber. It is clearly subordinate to the host dwelling. Since concerns were raised, it's been moved closer to the house to reduce its prominence, and additional planting has been proposed to soften the appearance, and this demonstrates a genuine effort to mitigate the impact. Context, while the store is visible, visibility alone does not equate to visual harm. Malden Road already contains a range of domestic features to front gardens, containing in the wider scene, boundary treatments, planting, parked cars, and everyday residential elements. In that context, a small cycle store does not read as dominant or discordant, and views of that from the junction are fleeting and oblique. And the third is about planning balance. The report rightly acknowledges the proposal to support active travel and sustainable transport in line with both national and local policies. Secure, accessible cycle storage is essential for cycling if it's to be used daily, particularly for families. There are no objections from the neighbours, no highway concerns and no issues relating to safety or amenity. The question for members is therefore whether the level of visual harm impact described is so significant that it outweighs the clear and ongoing benefits, and in my respectful view, it does not. Any harm is limited and has already been mitigated and can be addressed further through conditions. Refusing a small, well-mitigated domestic cycle store which enables sustainable travel, causing no technical harm, risks being disproportionate to the impact identified. For those reasons, I ask the committee to consider whether approval, potentially with conditions, would represent a more balanced and pragmatic outcome in this case. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. So now Councillor Rippingdale is going to recuse herself and then speak as the visiting councillor. Please come forward, Kaylee. When you press the switch and the red light goes on, you have up to 5 minutes. Bell will go off after 4. Please go ahead.
You'll be pleased to know I won't need 5 minutes. Chair and members, thank you for allowing me to speak on item 7.2, where I've been helping the constituent understand why a cycle shed is causing so much disconnection on the road. I called in this application because it raises an important balance between maintaining the character of Malden Road, which we fully understand Newtown and Christchurch is predominantly Victorian, supporting residents who are generally trying to make more sustainable transport choices. The bike store at Athelston House is modest in scale, but it touches on a much wider policy question about how we enable active travel in practice, not just in strategy documents. I fully recognise the officer's concern about the open, low-boundary character of Malden Road, and I understand how structure appears within that context. However, I think it's equally important to recognise the proactive steps the resident has already taken. They have introduced screening to soften the visual impact, reduce the prominence of the store, and ensures it integrates more sensitively into their frontage. This means we are not looking at a raw, untreated structure. The resident has tried to mitigate its appearance in good faith. We must be mindful that where national policy is heading. In early 2024, the government consulted on changes to the householder permitted development rights, specifically including proposals to allow small bin and bike stalls in front gardens without planning permission. This was explicitly set out in an official consultation published on the 13th of February 2024, which sought views on providing further flexibilities to permit bin and bike stalls in front gardens. A parliamentary written question confirmed the same consultation was underway and explored these changes. That consultation had closed now, but crucially the government has still not published that outcome, which means the planning framework we are using today may change in the near future, potentially permitting the exact kind of structure we are discussing tonight. In the meanwhile, we are left with the policy tension that many households, particularly those with outside access or usable rear space, simply do not have practical or secure alternative for storing bicycles. If the council is serious about promoting active travel, then residents must have somewhere safe and convenient to store their bikes. Otherwise, we intentionally create barriers to the very behaviour we're trying to encourage. In this case, the structure is modest, reversible and located in a private garden. The resident has screened it, and the wider public benefit of supporting active travel is clear and aligned with local and national policy direction. If members, after weighing all the material considerations, feel unable to improve the application under our current design policies, then I would simply ask the committee acknowledges the broader policy issue at play. We are being asked to determine applications under a planning system that's already under review, with forthcoming changes about how front garden bike stalls are treated entirely. Whatever the decision, I hope we will continue to support residents who are trying to cycle, because without secure storage, cycling is simply not viable for many households in areas exactly like this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Rippingale. So, we'll invite Chelsea to comment on the points raised within the Have Your Say speakers section.
Sorry, I do not have any further comments. I don't know if my colleagues have got any further to add.
Yeah, it's comments on the questions on the issues that James Bacon and Councillor Rippingale raised.
Thanks, Kelsey. I would like to acknowledge the comments that both the public speaker gave and Councillor Rippingale gave. I think they both eloquently put forward their case. I think you can see that officers have drafted a really balanced report here. This scheme does have significant benefit, there's no doubt about it, but part of our job is weighing up the planning balance as set at the end of the report. And in this case, in this location, we consider the harm to be too significant to tolerate effectively. We do want to support active travel, absolutely, and we do want to support cycle stores where we can. However, in some locations, they are simply too harmful, and the risk is that with a small erosion of character, by allowing this cycle store, when the neighbour comes in and wants one, they get increased. Although each application is assessed on its own merits, they get increasingly more difficult to resist, and you could end up having the erosion of a really attractive area that's got a really strong character. So it's really one for members to call on ultimately, and it's one for you to make a decision on, and it really is a matter of weighting in terms of the weight you give to that, the public benefit of active travel, to the harm and the significance of that harm. So happy to have that debate.
Thank you. So in a moment I will invite members to ask questions. I'll let the other local member speak first, which is Councillor Sam McLean. Right, okay, Councillor Sam McLean's issued he doesn't wish to speak, so Councillor Mark Gocher, please.
Thank you. I've got 2 points and, well, point-stroke questions to make. Firstly, picking up on something that Mr. Bacon said, can you clarify, please, if for sake of argument Mr. Bacon was proposing to block pave his front and stick a car there, would he be allowed to do that? Are there cars parked outside of houses at the front in that street? Because if they are, my question would be, how is that wooden shed more incongruous than sticking a Chelsea tractor or something in front of his house? That would be my first question. My second question would simply be on the other, looking at from the other side of things, picking up on what Councillor Rippendale said about access to bike storage. Could Mr. Bacon have stuck this round the back of his house, and would he still have easy access to get there and put the bikes round the back? So those are my 2 questions.
Thank you, Councillor Gocher. We've got Councillor Tate.
I speak as somebody who has a love of heritage and leaving things alone and not modernising them, and I thought it was a fence from the picture. I don't think it's obtrusive at all. I certainly don't think it harms the character of the area. So, yeah, on balance, just where I'm at, on balance, I think that it's perfectly acceptable.
And now Councillor McLean wishes to speak. Go ahead.
Thank you. I can't see the problem with this, nor can I see the problem if every house on that street had one of those. I'm going to propose that we accept this. Thanks. Approve it, I mean.
Okay, as you're aware, Councillor McLean, if we wish to vote against the officer's recommendation, you have to put a reasoned case forward. So do you need time to consider what
well, my
what your
case is that it doesn't do harm. That's wrong. Thank you.
Okay, right. Before we do that, could I ask James to comment on the reason that Councillor McLean has put forward?
Shall I quickly respond to Councillor Gocher's questions? Or you?
By all means, you can do that at the same time.
Very quickly, I believe that as a classified road, if a dropped curb was needed and the frontage to put a car at the front, you would need planning permission. We do sometimes have applications for, but that's because it's a classified road. It's the creation of an access that would require permission. In respect, what was the second question was?
It was about, you know,
could you provide it in regard? In this case, well, we did. Kelsey did speak to the applicant in this instance, see whether it was possible to put it into the rear garden. They weren't keen on doing that because of they prefer the accessibility of it being in the front, which is fair enough. It is obviously slightly easier to get to on the frontage. In terms of the reason to potentially approve, officers don't have a problem with that at all. It is a balanced call, and if members give more weight to the active travel than the character of the area, that is entirely in their gift.
And Councillor McCarthy.
Yeah, so I'm happy to second you, Councillor McLean. I think on the weight of active travel is on our side, and I think as a committee, if the panel is minded to, we don't feel it's unsightly at all. I think that is that simple, really, and I'm happy to run with that with those 2 caveats.
Okay, we have a proposer and a seconder. Are there any other comments from members? Okay, we will put it to the vote. Let's just ask the clerk to clarify on what it is you're putting to the vote, please.
putting to the vote to approve, sorry, to approve the bike store as it is without moving further. Does that make sense?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and you know, given the comments made that it doesn't feel there is any harm in giving weight to the need to promote cycling. All those in favour, please show.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. So item 7.2 is the application is accepted in contrary to the officer recommendation. So we'll move on to item 7.3, which is land off of Oak Road Chapel, and I've got. Sorry, are you asking me to note that, or asking him to speak on it?
Well, that's for your information.
Right,
They
okay.
took part in the site visit.
Thank you. Right, yeah, so just so the committee can note, Councillor McCarthy's and Councillor Catherine Spindler took part in the site visit to the property, and I'll invite Chris Harding to present the report.
So the application is basically for the retention of earthworks at Oak Road Chapel, and I'll just take you through the location plans. Basically, before I go through all of the maps, need to confirm the site lies within the countryside and within the Colne Valley High Landscape Value Area. And the earthworks have been undertaken and completed, which involves the levelling of part of the site, which is located here, if you can see my cursor, just in this area here. So it's the earthworks here. And the applicant has stated that they are required to level the site for an agricultural building that's been approved under a prior approval application, application 240679, which is referred to in the committee report. We'll come back to that particular issue later on in the report. So, site is here and chapel is located here. So it is off Oak Road, located here. And then this shows the red line area that has been submitted. The blue line shows other land under the ownership of the applicant. This is a larger scale drawing showing the site in question. So the red line area is where the earthworks have been undertaken. These are contour lines. And this is more detailed contour line submission. You won't be able to read that, but that just shows the contour plan that has been submitted. So this is a plan showing the Colne Valley High Landscape Area. The site is located up here, annotated, with the red area here being one of the highest, or basically the highest landscape value in the Colne Valley area, but is not an AONB stroke nationally important landscape area. So it is basically the highest landscape in the Colne Valley area, but not a national landscape area. This is an aerial photograph showing the area of the earthworks that were undertaken. This is an aerial photo probably shortly after the works were done. So you'll see this patch of land in here. That gives an idea of the scale of the area in question. So I'll just take you through some photographs now. This is basically looking towards the site. with my car in the entranceway there. Note planting around the side, quite a narrow road, and then this is a closer view showing you would be able to see through the access to some degree, but there are approved gates here which are often closed. They are green metal gates that you can partially see through. They're obviously open at the moment. And this is a view looking into the site. The brown area is basically the field cultivated area, and this area is the start of where the earthworks are undertaken. So if you look into the site, you'll see the area has started to become overgrown where the earthworks were. Basically, the most significant area visually is the cutaway down this side of the field. This gives a good view of the view down into the valley, obviously a backdrop of trees, and a lengthy view across the site. So this area was partially having the earthworks undertaken, and then this area in here cut away basically to flatten it. I've got a number of photographs to show you. Again, another view showing from near the site adjacent to Oak Road, looking down the valley. A view looking back up towards the site. This was taken a few months ago, and I've got some up-to-date pictures at the end of the report, so you'll see that you can see some of the earthworks sort of still visible, where you can see the sort of the mudded stone area, and then the line of the field adjacent. Another view looking back up further, so the earthworks along here. So this is one of the significant areas where you can see the difference in height between the adjacent field and the earthworks. Again, looking back up towards the entrance, so the entrance is up here, and note some trees in here. And this is a view looking across the site, which sort of emphasises the difference in heights between what used to be there and what has now been sort of cut away. And again, looking across towards that cutaway area, you see there's the most cutaway area is here, and then it gradually reduces as you go further down. Again, looking at that cutaway area. And then this is at the bottom of the slope. That's what the bottom of the slope looked like a few months ago, looking back across and then to the trees in the background there on the side boundary. And a more distant view looking back up the site. And then looking down. This was taken this week, so you'll see the vegetation has continued to grow. There's a bit of water on there, and then the graded bank down there, and looking across the valley. And this gives an impression of the cutaway. I think the shadow makes this look quite sort of almost vertical steep, but if you look at the site in reality, you'll see there is that gradation there, so that just clarifies that. And then this is the view looking from Oak Road across, so the access would be to the left. This is looking across the side boundary of the site. And this is a map of where the previous agricultural building was approved under prior approval. Access in here. And that is the building that was approved. It's about 6.2 metres high and 15 metres wide. So I'll leave you with that photograph there. So I'll go through the planning considerations now. So from our point of view, the proposal is deemed to be relating to agriculture. That has been questioned by objectors, but in our view, it does legitimately relate to agriculture. the applicant has confirmed that the land before it was dug down was used for hay, and the previous agricultural building approved was approved for hay storage and machinery storage. So there's no reason to believe this is not agriculturally related. Accordingly, local plan and national guidance indicates that agricultural uses are supported in the countryside, and that is subject to appropriate landscape mitigation and also judging it on all of the planning merits. One of those key merits is the visual impact, and the scheme is considered acceptable in terms of this visual impact. It would not have a significant impact upon the character of the countryside. It's well screened from outside the site, including along the front boundary and then along the side boundary, and then distant views. There is a tree belt along this area here, and then from views this way, the site obviously steps down below the existing field, so again would partly be screened by the topography. So public views are basically quite well screened. You would glimpse it at certain points, but basically the views would be very filtered by vegetation, topography, and by the basic distance of views. Therefore, we don't think there's a significant visual impact upon the intrinsic character of the countryside, and so the character of the countryside is therefore retained. It's therefore not considered the proposal should be refused on the grounds of impact on the character of the area, and that it accords with local plan policies and the NPPF in this respect. In terms of highway considerations, the Highways Authority has raised no objections. The access has not been changed in conjunction with this application, and therefore there are not highway objections. The work has already been carried out, so there are not implications in that respect. In terms of vegetation, no significant vegetation has been affected. Trees are avoided. The area was basically used for hay previously, so that is not significant vegetation in that respect. In terms of wildlife issues, this has been carefully assessed. An ecological appraisal has been submitted, and Essex Place Services, Ecology Department, have raised no objections and consider that there is sufficient detail to consider the ecological implications. And they have raised no objections and have recommended conditions as shown in the report. It's not considered that a 10% B&G is required, and the Essex Place Services agree that because this is retrospective, you do not need to go for biodiversity gain. The Natural England have also not objected to this, and also have not raised any issue in terms of licensing requirements in terms of impact upon wildlife. So therefore the impact on wildlife is considered acceptable and accords with the local plan policies and the NPPF and all of the legislation in that respect, subject to those conditions at the end of the report. In terms of other issues, there's no impact on neighbouring residential amenity. It's not within a flood zone. There are no heritage assets affected. The correct notices have been served, and it's considered that the red line is an accurate reflection of what has been undertaken on the site. I have looked at the site twice. I've walked the length of the site and stepped it out, and I've looked at the proximity to the neighbouring trees. I've also raised the issue with the applicant, and they've confirmed that their red line is accurate. The fact that there is some discoloration of earth in the aerial photograph well down the site doesn't mean there were significant earthworks in that particular vicinity. So the red line is considered accurate. One or two other points. In terms of the prior approval application for the building that was previously approved, that is not part of this application. However, because the levels have changed, our advice is going to be to the applicant that we would recommend a reapplication for prior approval of the building because the levels have changed. So we will be putting that in the informative, in the decision notice if the application is approved. It should be noted that as the land has been lowered, then again that will reduce further any visual impact of that agricultural building. Also draw your attention to a comment made by an objector about a ministerial statement from 2015, where the fact that if there's an intentional planning breach, it does weigh against the applicant. We have considered that. We don't know whether this was intentional or not. It's obviously been undertaken, but nevertheless, even so, it's not considered there is significant harm from this works, and that what has been undertaken doesn't mean that any mitigation has been ruled out. The only mitigation we consider necessary is relating to the potential conditions applied for the wildlife, and we don't think there's any significant harm anyway from what has been undertaken. So the recommendation is therefore approval with conditions outlined in the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I'll now invite Angus Forrest, who will be speaking against, to come forward. And when you press the button and the red light goes on, you'll have 3 minutes.
Excuse me, has there been any reference to the amendment sheet?
Chris, would you like to address the amendment sheet, please?
The amendment sheet was forwarded to members, I believe. Madeline can confirm that.
Yes, it was.
That included the full comments. So there was an amendment sheet which summarised the comments, and then I understand the whole of the comments were forwarded individually to members.
Yes, the whole. Yeah.
Okay, if you'd like to come forward, Angus. So you've been given assurance that the amendment sheet has been forwarded to members, and you have 3 minutes, and once the red light comes on, and the bell will go after 2. Thank you. Yep, sorry, can you make sure that your mic is on, please? Thank you.
Chair, members, put simply, correct, clear and complete information has not been provided. This application relies on too many unverified presumptions to enable an informed decision to be made. Having read the officer's report, fundamental questions remain. Importantly, what genuine agricultural need or justification exists for these extensive earthworks? Why is the applicant not giving comprehensive details of the building he intends to construct within this application? He incorrectly assumes he has the automatic right to build further. The officer's report explicitly confirms that this is not the case. There is no proof that the applicant runs any qualifying agricultural business. Without that, permitted development rights simply do not apply. It is wrong to assume that this scheme is supported by any local plan policy, simply because the officer claims the creation of a hillside terrace relates to agriculture. The earthworks have no proven functional need, therefore no planning merit. They've already caused visible ecological and landscape harm, which will increase if permitted. Crucially, there is no mention of the ministerial statement which makes intentional, unauthorised development a valid reason for refusal. Government policy is clear. When people build first and ask later, the irreversible harm is done. The applicant named in earlier spurious applications has already satisfied their building need by obtaining approval late last year for development at its own premises at Pattocks Farm. So what need remains off Oak Road? When these works began, they spilled beyond the boundary, damaging trees and a badger set on neighbouring land. The current red plan excludes such affected areas, making proper mitigation by planning obligation impossible. The first earthworks application had to be withdrawn because it was defective. This resubmission repeats errors. Council officers implicitly acknowledge this application is wrong. The red line still omits relevant land and the correct fee not paid. Why is the council making detrimental concessions by pretending the red line is correct when it isn't? This is not permitted development, exempt from BNG. Highways response is based on incomplete information. Why are we here when Planning Act clearly states non-compliant applications must not be entertained? Members, you have every reason to refuse this application. Doing so carries little risk, but approval risks legal challenge. The Ombudsman is already investigating allegations of bias and maladministration.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's your time. Thank you for putting your viewpoints to the committee. And now I will invite Councillor Sunnox to come up and speak. And you will have 5 minutes once the red light comes on, and the bell will go after 4.
I don't want to take 5 minutes, Chair, but I'd just like to say that this has gone on with correspondence for a couple of years now, and it's not at all satisfactory, but I do feel sorry for officers having to deal with the level of correspondence that's gone on, and I do rather hope that it can be settled this evening. And that doesn't mean to say I don't have concerns, and I've spoken to Angus, who's just spoken to you, repeatedly about this, and I share some of his worries about it. I'm very pleased to hear that the existing permitted use is no longer in the view of officers. That's good, because the way these earthworks have been done is completely unsuitable for any sort of agricultural thing. There's a drop from the gate, there's a drop down to a piece of level land of about 3 metres, and those of you who've done the site visit will have seen it. So that's very good news. So, and the other thing is, it is quite a mess. And in an ideal world, one would be able to reinstate it. But it's not an ideal world. I personally, as a ward councillor, would like to see this settled and put to bed, and but with the strongest marker that technically can be put down against further development on the site in the future, particularly on that bit of flat land 3 metres below the level of the gate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sunnox. So, Chris, there's a number of issues raised there, if you would like to address them. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think the majority of the issues raised have already been covered in the report, really, but and in my presentation, but I'll just go through them briefly again. Yes, I explained that our view is that this does relate to agriculture. It is an agricultural field, basically. There's a crop next to it, which was apparent. The applicant has confirmed this was for hay storage. I've got no reason to disbelieve that. I've got no evidence the applicant is lying in that respect. So I can see no other use on the site apart from agriculture. So our view is that this would be classified as agricultural land. No proof that it isn't agricultural land. And therefore, in that respect, I summarise that generally agricultural development is supported in the local plan and the national planning policy guidance, but it does caveat that it has to be in keeping with the character of the area and other issues, which I explained in the report. In terms of the issue raised about the ministerial statement, I think I've covered that in terms of we don't know if this was an intentional breach or an accidental one, but even then mitigation apart from the wildlife conditions is not considered to be required, and that what they've done doesn't cause significant harm in any case. So the weight against the applicant with regard to the ministerial statement I don't think is great at all. The application does not affect important trees and vegetation. I've looked at the site twice and I can see no trees and vegetation of significance that has been affected. It's close to neighbouring property, but I can't see any significant vegetation that's been affected on the neighbouring site. I've looked at the site in terms of impact on the wildlife as well, and as explained, Natural England have not requested any further mitigation in that respect. The ecological survey has been submitted and is deemed satisfactory, including by the Ecological Services Department at the County Council. Any future application in this respect would need to be carefully assessed, and updated wildlife surveys would probably need to be submitted because they do have a shelf life, and also an exclusion zone would also need to be carefully assessed, because with certain species you do have to have a distance from where they live, basically. At the moment, I can't see a problem with achieving that exclusion zone. We've gone through the issue of the red line. I don't think it's defective. I've walked it, I've looked at the aerial plan, I've discussed it with the applicants. I've checked the location of works adjacent to neighbouring property. If there is any minor defect, I can't see that it's material and would affect this application consideration. And in terms of risk of a legal challenge or the Ombudsman, objectors do have the right to go to the Ombudsman. My view is that we haven't been defective in the terms of how we have considered this application. We haven't bent over backwards to be biased towards the applicant at all, hence why the application has taken so long, because we've looked at the issues very carefully and requested further detail where required. We've had the application a considerable period of time. We haven't just waved it through and brought it to committee. We have looked at all the issues very carefully. My view is I don't think we are at risk of losing a legal challenge. There has been a judicial review previously on the site for a previous application for the gates, and the council was not found to be at fault in that respect. So I think that covers the issues. The fee issue, basically if the application is validated, we can't then go back to the applicant and say we want an increased fee. So that's now not a planning consideration. And then in terms of the comments from Councillor Sunnox, yes, the drop is noted, but I think in future, even with more vegetation growing across it, that'll become less and less noticeable. Also, if a building is put there again, the lowered site helps reduce that impact in the countryside, which was deemed acceptable in the past anyway. But we will, as I said, be informing the applicant that, in our view, he should make a new prior approval application for the building given the levels that have changed. We can't rule out further development on the site because each application would be judged on its merits. We appreciate the importance of the site, although it is quite well constrained, but if any future application comes in, it will be considered very carefully with due regard to the importance of this landscape. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I believe there was a question mark raised over the highways response. So if you could address that. It says in the report the proposal isn't detrimental to highway safety and does not impede the traffic flow, and the access has been in existence for some considerable time.
Yes, no objections from the Highway Authority. No change proposed under this application to the access. The work has obviously already been undertaken, so there's not really much for the Highway Authority to consider or object to because the works have already been undertaken. The application wouldn't result in a severe impact on the highway network, which is one of the requirements under the NPPF paragraph 116. So there's not a severe impact on the local highway network. So in effect, there's no reason to refuse this on highway grounds. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And so I'll now invite members of the committee to ask any questions. I don't see anything. Oh, Councillor Gocher.
Yeah, just to ask, I mean, obviously, listening to what people have been saying, it seems to me that a lot of the concerns seem to me to be rooted in the suspicion that this is not going to be used for agricultural purposes in terms of the building that goes on the site. So is it possible tonight for us to, if we do retrospectively approve the earthworks, condition that the building that sits on that site has to be for agricultural purposes and not a caravan park or something, or whatever else the fears surround?
Thank you, Councillor Gocher. I don't see anyone else asking any questions, so I'll invite Chris to respond to your question.
Thank you, Chair. And I can't see that we can condition that because no buildings are proposed under this application. If they wanted to use it for, say, a caravan park, they would need to apply for that. If they wanted to put up a building that wouldn't be used for agricultural purposes, again, they would need to apply for that. And there could well be a policy problem with that. If an agricultural building is subsequently approved, there is the prior approval system, and that potentially allows agricultural buildings, but it doesn't allow those buildings to then be converted to other uses without permission, basically. So we're pretty covered in terms of the use of the land. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, one of the planning officers, Lucy Mondon, wishes to speak. Go ahead, Lucy.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify a few points from the objector and also the late representation that was received and forwarded as part of the amendment sheet. So just for clarity, the objection and the speaker tonight referred to agricultural permitted development. So this application has been made for retrospective planning permission. It's not made on the basis of agricultural permitted development at all. So just to point that out for clarity. In terms of BNG and the requirements, government guidance in the National Planning Policy guidance is clear that retrospective applications BNG does not apply to those at present. And then finally, just with regards to the Ombudsman complaint that has been filed in relation to this application, we have checked with the Council's Head of Governance and Monitoring Officer, who has confirmed that the complaint to the Ombudsman should not prevent the Planning Committee in determining the application. Any investigation by the Ombudsman focuses on administrative aspects of the application and not the actual decision itself, and that there are other routes for challenging the actual decision, such as a judicial review. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any further names down. The recommendation is to approve subject to conditions. The conditions are listed in your agenda papers on page 43 and 44. So could I invite a proposal? Yep. Councillor McCarthy. Right, Councillor McCarthy is proposing to accept the officer's recommendation subject to the conditions listed on page 43 and 44. Is there a seconder? Councillor McLean. Thank you. All those in favour, please show.
Seven, 4.
Are there any abstentions?
And 4 abstentions.
And anyone against? No. So therefore that application is approved. Thank you all for your time. Those interested in that particular item are free to leave, and that brings us to that concludes our business for the evening, and thank you all for attending. Thank you.